after wondering, where do I start on this? Where do I start to discover if I can fly my Mavic 3 in the C1 category, meaning it has the same restrictions as the Mini 3 in the UK as I can do in any of the 27 EU countries plus Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Iceland. Where do I start? Where do I start? So I looked at a lot of different places, thought that's not the right place, that's not the right place. And finally I found it. I found where to start. And it was this. The place I showed you earlier, which is the Commission Implementing Regulation, this one here. This is the one that tells you, right? Okay, and here is all the introductory to. I've been through all of this. I've read all of these. But you can't just click in one and read it, because you then have so many different hyperlinks within each one to annexes, to provisions, to other things. But this is where you start, okay? So let me take you through a little bit. Let me come back to my face, right? I'm going to take you through a little bit of my path, where I started. That's where I started, and where I ended up, and how I came to the conclusions that I came to. But I'm not going to take you through every single step, because it would take more than an hour. It would take days, possibly weeks, to show you exactly where I went, because you have to refer to annexes, you have to refer to provisions, you have to refer to other clauses, you have to look at things that have been deleted, you have to look at things that have been amended. It's a nightmare. It took me 2 weeks just to get where I am. Okay, so I'm not going to take you through all of it, but I'll give you a guide, and then if Mark's putting the links in there, you can then go and do it yourself. Okay, but let me show you where I went with this, right? Okay. The particular provisions concerning the use of certain US in the open category, okay? So, if you are flying in the open category and you are flying a drone which does not comply with delegated regulation, this one here that we're talking about, and which is not privately built, which means it's been built by a company like DJI, you are allowed to continue to be operated under the following conditions when they're placed in the market before. So if you bought a DJI drone before 26, you're allowed to fly it in the subcategory A1, right? Must be under 250 grams, okay? But let's read it again. UAS, which do not comply, can be flown here. So I thought, well, what if it does comply with this regulation? Does a Mavic 3 comply with delegated regulation EU 2019 /945? Does it? Well, I don't know. Let's have a look and see. Okay, so I had a look to see. Let's see. Does it? So here's where it tells you what actually applies to what you have to do to fly in a C1 class, okay? In the UK, still currently standing. So here we go. A Class C1 UAS bears the following class identification label. You'll all be, many of you will be aware of what this is. And those of you who have an Air 3 that's got that on it, or a Mavic 3 Pro or whatever it is, I don't know, that's got one of those. No, not a Mavic 3 Pro, because that'll be the C2 class. But you may have a drone that has that already. That's what it looks like, right? So it tells you, here's all the provisions. A C1 UAS shall comply with the following. That means it must comply with all of the following to be able to have that C1 class and fly with it in the UK. In the UK, this is a UK regulation, right? Legislation.gov.uk. To fly in the United Kingdom, not in the EU, to fly in the United Kingdom, this is what you must do to comply with that. Here are all the things, right? It must have an MTOM of less than 900 grams, right? Okay, so that means Mavic 3, Air 3, Air 2, Air 2S, and I don't know, DJI FPV, possibly, Avata as well, right? A maximum speed and level flight of 19 meters per second. That is the speed of the Mavic 3, 19 meters per second, right? Maximum hearing with a tape point limited to 120 metres, or be equipped with a system that limits it, right? And it does. We know that the DJI software does limit you. You can turn it off, but it still does limit you. So all of these things it complies with, right? All of these things, but here is the caveat. Here's the sticking point. It must have a direct remote identification. Now, hold on, don't everybody go, oh, I knew it was impossible. It's got to have remote ID. Hold your horses, right? Bear with me. It must be equipped with a direct remote identification that does all of these things. And all of these things, this is paragraph 12, all of these things in paragraph 12 are the things that they're bringing in for all drones anyway. All drones in the UK are going to have remote ID. But here's the thing. Because it's telling you that to fly in the C1 category with a drone above 250 grams, under 290 grams, it tells you it must have direct remote identification. If and all of the other things, it already complies with without having to do anything, right? I've read through it. Take it from me. You can read it at your leisure. The Mavic 3 and the Air 3 and the Air 2S, they all comply with everything else. The only thing that they don't comply with currently is this: have a direct remote identification. But here's the thing. Let me take you back. Let me take you to the CAA regulations website again, and the remote ID section. Okay? And it says here, the UK is exploring whether and how to implement remote ID. This system enables a drone in flight to provide identification and local information that can be received by other parties. It's exploring whether and how to. It's exploring it. So that means that currently you cannot comply with paragraph 12. So it's telling you, it's telling you that you must comply with paragraph 12, which is have a direct remote identification. But the CAA are telling you that they're exploring how to implement remote ID, which means they don't yet have a system. They're still exploring how to implement it. So therefore, you cannot comply with it. And it's the same as, let's suppose there was a regulation or even a law that says to fly a drone in the United Kingdom, you must have it tethered to a pink unicorn. You cannot be held accountable in a court of law for not having it tethered to a pink unicorn, because a pink unicorn doesn't exist. So it's impossible to comply with that. And you cannot be held accountable in a court of law for not complying with a law that is impossible to comply with. Okay, so currently, because the CE are saying that, they are still exploring how to implement remote ID. You cannot yet comply with it, because even if you employ a remote ID system that you can buy off of eBay, that may not be the system that complies with the CAA are looking into. So therefore, you're not complying with it. You can't. It's impossible to. So therefore, you can disregard paragraph 12. And every other paragraph that is in there, let me bring it back. Every other one, no, that in. Every other paragraph from 1 to 20 means that you are complying. And I have looked, see, it's down here, it's got textual amendments. I have looked at every single one of these annexes to see if it changes, if that changes anything in this section, which is part 2. And I can tell you now, it doesn't change anything. So in summary, if you can apply for the C1 label by going to an EU country, sending your drone up, getting the pop-up on your screen, doing the application, and getting the label sent to an address in the EU. And then you attach that label to your drone, take a picture of it, picture of your serial number of your drone, upload it to DJI, and they send you the C1 certificate telling you that that drone is C1 certificated. You are eligible to fly in the UK under the Commission for Delegated Regulation EU 2019/945 of 12th of March 2019 on unmanned aircraft systems and on third country operators of unmanned aircraft systems. Part 2, paragraphs 1 to 20. I can look into the law, you can look into the law, and they can look into the law, all right? And it's not about interpreting the law. There's no interpreting to be done here. The law is the law. The letter of the law means the letter of the law. No interpretation is required, and no interpretation will be given. It's the law, what it stands word for word, okay? And word for word, everything that I've read, and I spent 2 weeks on it, which is not a lot of time, I know. But having spent 2 weeks on it, just on this one little thing, the C1 marking, I am convinced that we can fly in the C1 category, as I have described.